In the previous lesson, we saw how we can create automotive design and again creating applied graphics, and also how we can work with HDRIs and with the models to create depth of field effects, camera effects, vignetting, but also a little bit of motion blur effect like this. Now you can do some of these effects in other software like Photoshop or After Effects or GIMP and so on. But if we want to do it here, we just need to play a little bit with the environment. So here I've downloaded an environment from Polyheaven, and then we can change here the exposure, rotation, but especially if you want to have this like motion blur effect, you need to play with the ground position. So you need to change here the ground position a little bit, and you can see that if I bring it back to the original position, you see that it doesn't have here that kind of movement effect. So if you want to simulate that, you can do it with the settings that you find in the environment. Now we talk about how to set up environments and also other effects like depth of field and glare and others, which we're going to see also in this video a little bit. And also we talked about how to render and also how we can save the render, how we can customize some render settings right here. So let's go back to the scene here. And we also talked about how to apply again smart masks and smart materials after we bake the maps that can help us to do this in order to do something more realistic and not too perfect. So we add some dirt, we add some stains, and not only like graphics, applied graphics and logos and things for advertising or packaging or product design, and in this case automatic design and visualization. Now in this lesson we're going to change the topic. We're going to see a little bit of architecture, so we're going to do into something even bigger. And I've already imported here a model, and I've already applied some materials and again some smart masks, some smart materials to make it look less perfect and more realistic. Now this is a really basic model that we find in, and also you can see I've applied the depth of field already, which is pretty useful when you have like larger scenes more than when you have like small objects. Depth of field is an effect that will help you to have that extra realism. So I usually apply it to my scene. Now this is the model from Sketchfab. So this is the original model. You can see the texture are a little bit more uh, neat and without all those defects that I've added. But if you want more information about this, you can see here. This is going to be FBX file, but you can also try again with GLTF. And that's the auto radar. It's quite big, but not too big. So you can try with this. So download it in the FBX file. And it also has some furniture inside, so it's good to test. Well, they're not so perfect. You can see they're kind of boxy, but that's fine. We just want to test another environment, which is kind of an interior design or architecture setting, a little bit different from the things we've done before, just to show you that Substance is pretty versatile, can be used for many reasons. Now, before we proceed, I want to show you quickly that what we're talking about in the camera settings, these are actually settings that you find in reality. So when you need to do the depth of field, you need to work with the opening of your shutter in the camera. So the more it's open, the more the light will come in, but also the more you can create the focus and in focus and out of focus effect. So it's all about the shutter essentially. And also, and if you want, you can also study this more if you want. Now, when the shutter is a lot fast, well, in that case, we have kind of a frozen effect of the action. So the object appears still, even though it's moving. While when we have a slow shutter speed, we have the blurred action, which is, well, the motion blur effect. So we find this, kind of moving effect like this in pictures. And usually this is more visible in night scene because, well, this is when you have a slower shutter speed, more lights will come in. So that's useful in night scene, but also it's gonna determine the motion blur effect. The shutter is faster, you're gonna have less light coming in the camera. So usually you have a higher speed here when you are not in night scenes but in day scenes. But this is kind of technical, and just to explain to you, and if you want, you can study it more. You can also use these effects or create these effects directly in Photoshop to gather the depth of field or the motion blur. You can simulate them using Photoshop. So after you finish your 3D scene, and also you can use GIMP, you can use Pixar. Again, these are free alternatives. And also motion blur is really useful and used in After Effects when you have moving objects. So in After Effects, you can animate in 2D. You can also animate 3D objects, and they will have that motion blur if you want to apply it. Now, other software good for animation, creating animation, high level animation, high quality animation. You can use like Twinmotion. If you want to do also interaction, you can use Unreal Engine, and they all contain properties for the cameras to simulate depth of field, motion blur, and so on. Now for this lesson, you can also use your customized environment map. We saw that we can use EXR that you can find in the Substance Painter 3D Marketplace. And we also saw that you can use HDR environments from Polyheaven or from the web. Well, the truth is you can use any image. So if you want to have this image, you can just download it and apply it. Even if it's a JPEG, you can use it as an environment texture. It needs to be spherical though. Now, you can also use Substance with other 3D software like Blender if you want to continue like in animation and other render engines out there. You can use it in Blender. So you'll find add-ons for Blender, or you find add-ons for the most important render engines out there like Arnold, V-Ray, Redshift, and Corona, Octane, Keyshot. And also other 3D application like Maya or 3ds Max or Cinema 4D, Modo, and Blender, and so on. You can follow the instructions on the manual. Now, in this case, I want to show you how you can again go to another application, which is called Substance 3D Stager, and this was formerly called Dimension. So it's about rendering. So you can add some lights, you can do a little bit of scene creation and assembly. Is not as advanced as Blender or similar, but it's gonna be fine if you need to do like small scenes. You want to assemble them with lights, not only the environment light, but also lights, and you can still use materials and other objects, so you can bring in more objects instead of Substance. In Substance, we usually use one model. We don't bring in other models or lights. We have the environment light, which does all the lighting job, and then we have the entire scene that is divided into like different objects, like in this case, but it's still one scene. So I cannot like add models in here. I cannot add other stuff unless I go back where I created this, whatever software it is, and then I just change it there and then re-import it into Substance. Substance is basically about creating materials, advanced materials, more realistic materials, and maps and channels and textures and so on. So I want to create a new file, and I'm gonna select this model, which is called Villa Alsmer. Click on Open, and here you always need to decide if you want to automatically unwrap if you think that the maps don't work, or you want to use the mapping that is actually in there. And then we see we have some options. So maybe we can use only generate missing data. And in this case, I just want to import without unwrapping, because I believe there is already an unwrapping in there, so we don't really need to do that. And so let's just say okay, discard this project, and we just need to wait for the scene to load. Now, if it's a bigger scene containing a lot of objects, a lot of polygons, it's going to take more time, so be patient. And there it is. Now, to test if everything